Hey everybody, welcome to my kitchen, messy as it is. It's always a pleasure to have you here, and hopefully I can answer some questions that you might have about beans and soaking beans. So say hey, let me know. Oh, hi! And I'm not sure if you say your name Jackie, and so tell me if that is not correct, and I will try to do better or write it out phonetically. And you have been such a pleasure to have around, so thank you so much for commenting on posts and in my group, Vegan Recipes, Cooking with Kathy Hester. You've just been awesome. Anyhow, all of you guys are awesome, so take that into consideration too. So what I talked about, I asked some people some questions last week about what kind of lives you'd like to see. And quick soaking beans in the Instant Pot was number 2. So that's what we're doing today. Oh, it's Jackie? Oh, so that's so much easier. Well, thank you. I made it all super fancified. So why would you want to soak your beans to begin with? And there's 2 big school of thoughts. Always soak your beans no matter what. Don't soak your beans ever. And there is no one right answer. You have to decide that for yourself. And I always use the example that Indian people soak everything, including lentils, which we don't soak, right? So Indians soak all the beans. Different times for lentils and smaller beans than others. Hi, Sherry. Welcome. And then we have Mexicans who tend not to soak their beans at all. And both cultures seem to be thriving. So I don't think there's any one thing that's going to get you. Now, I will say if you have certain stomach issues, if you have trouble digesting fiber, maybe you're coming from a regular old American diet and now you're trying some vegan food and you're eating more fiber from brown rice and beans and different things and your stomach is a little upset, soaking your beans can definitely be a help for that. Yeah, and Jackie says she soaks beans to cut down on the gas, and that's true if you have a lot of gas once you eat the beans. I know it's not a pleasant topic, but it can help. Also, with both of those, gas and stomach upsets, there are herbs that are used in different cultures to help kind of make the beans more easy to digest. So like in Japan, they use kombu. In like the Eastern European countries, they use bay leaves. In Mexico, they use epazote. So there's all different kinds of things. And in fact, I brought this out because I know this is an older book of mine, the Great Vegan Bean Book, but it's got lots of bean information. It talks about using heirloom beans as well. And heirloom beans, that's just a fancy name for beans that have pure strains, right? So they haven't really been cross-pollinated. They haven't, so if you plant these heirloom beans or if you're planting heirloom tomato seeds, you can harvest those and actually use those seeds to plant again. Whereas something that's not always the case. So if you just went out and bought a burpee seed for tomatoes that was normal, if it didn't say heirloom on there, if you planted the seeds you harvested from the tomato you grew, then you might not have the same results. So what happens is a lot of times heirloom beans can be a little tastier or different. With beans in particular, Rancho Gordo is an amazing source for heirloom beans. And Steve does an amazing job at getting all different kinds of varieties. He works with farms in Mexico, so I recommend his beans highly. I don't have any right here, but definitely go to ranchogordo.com to kind of check that out. So no matter what beans you're using, or if you're deciding to soak or not soak. So for me, my recipes, sometimes I use soaked beans and sometimes I don't. Why? Is the question I get a lot. And usually it's when I developed that recipe, I thought the night before, I'm going to make some white bean chili. Let me soak those white beans overnight. Whereas if I'm just waking up and I'm like, I'm going to make chili today, I just go ahead and throw them in and cook them from dry. And what I want to do, yeah, you were going to ask about, Rancho Gordo is definitely some of my favorites. You can get the yellow-eyed beans, which are similar to black-eyed peas, and they're delicious. I have some recipes for those on healthyslowcooking.com. I'm trying to think of what other, I like so many of his beans, really. I love the runner beans. They're bigger. So like scarlet runner beans, black runner beans, white runner beans are bigger and almost kind of, I hesitate to say it, but kind of meatier. If you put it in a stew, it really adds volume and it's toothsome and really yummy. And Brenna says hello in her whiniest of whines. She wants some attention and she's not getting it right now. The other, Cheryl is even home, so they actually could be hanging out with her instead of doing this. So let's go back. So sometimes I soak my beans, sometimes I don't. Some people soak their beans all the time or have stomach upsets or don't feel so good if they don't soak their beans. So there's no judgments. I'm just never going to tell you what you should do. I'm going to give you the options and let you pick. That's kind of the way I am. Because if someone tells me something, I tend to pick the opposite. Maybe you're not as stubborn as I am. Okay. So to quick soak your beans, you've probably heard about doing it in the stove before. And what you do is you put your beans in, cover it with a couple of inches of water. I always, like the beans come to here, I do a few extra inches. If you're on the stove, you bring it to a boil, take it off, cover it, and let it sit for half an hour. And that's the traditional way to quick soak beans. We can do it even a little faster in our Instant Pot, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So I have pinto beans that I'm using, and one of the things I want to talk about too while we're on the subject of beans is what my mom used to call look the beans. You got to look the beans first, right? And so what that means is to kind of just put them on the counter and look through them. Well, these look fine, right? Why would it matter? Sometimes you'll find rocks or kind of nasty beans. This isn't a rock, but it looks like it. It looks more of like just kind of a nasty, dirty, like didn't wash off. I don't want to eat this bean. So now if you have some beans that are just broken or split a little bit, that's fine, right? That's okay. They're just not perfect. And I'll show you from overhead too, because we're going to switch over there. So see, these are just non-perfect beans. And I'll show you this one again with those. See, and that one's an icky bean. And sometimes you truly will find rocks, little teeny tiny rocks, like maybe a quarter of this. And it's great to save money by using dried beans, right? But that kind of goes away pretty quick if you break a tooth. If you break one of your teeth is what I'm really trying to say. So this is half a pound of beans, only because I wanted to go ahead and get some done ahead of time to show you. So normally I would do this with the whole pound. Okay, I'm just going to put those in my Instant Pot. And why do I have a strainer? Because after I looked through the beans, then I rinse them. Because while most of the time the beans are pretty clean, you just don't know what happened in the field or the processing plant. And so it's just better to be safe. And especially with all the food safety issues. And all you need to do is just rinse them. And it's just not that big a deal. Oh yeah, Jackie, you're right. And you can also find some hunks of dried mud in there too, which is, I'm sure adds some sort of minerals, but I don't know where that mud came from. So I'd rather not eat it. But I'm a little wacky that way. So first we look through the beans to make sure there's no rocks, gross beans, anything we don't want to eat, hunks of mud, and they would be little teeny tiny ones, okay? Then we're going to put those beans in a colander, rinse them really well, move them around with your hands, okay? So how much water you should put in is really kind of up to you. You could go just a couple of inches above, and I'm not sure I'm going to have a good view of this. So it's like if you, maybe up to the first knuckle, but I'm going to go ahead and put 4 cups in here. I know that's going to be more than enough because I'm not even having a whole pound of beans there. So then I'm going to put on my lid, and you can see this is an Ultra, so it looks a little bit different. If you don't have an Ultra, you have to make sure you turn this to seal. And then we're going to cook it for 5 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and start that. And remember, if you got an Ultra recently, or you're going to get an Ultra for Christmas, the Ultra model is the one that you must push the start button for the Instant Pot to start. So that's super important. I have walked away expecting it to start magically like the other ones do, and I've been very sad. So I would like you not to be sad like that. Okay, so yeah, on high pressure. Pretty much all the time I cook on high pressure except for a few things on low pressure. Low pressure is good if you want to do like asparagus or something that's a more tender vegetable. And don't forget too, with things like that, you can cook something for 0 minutes, which sounds like crazy talk. But what happens with the Instant Pot, right? Before it starts cooking, it comes up to pressure, which means it's cooking. The temperature is rising. So you get that much instead of cooking the 5 minutes and then releasing. You're just letting it build up, and then you can let the pressure release manually. And that's what we're going to do here. For those of you that are a little unsure or don't like quick releasing this way, which is, there's almost nothing there, you can get something like this Dragon that lets you move it away, and it keeps it from the counters. But I would recommend that you pull your Instant Pot out from under the counter anyhow. It's better. What I do is whenever it's under the counter, I know I can't cook in it, right? And then I pull it out and I have to look and see if the liner's in. Because one of the biggest mistakes that happen is that people will pour things in without the liner. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love the Dragon too. And so in case you didn't know, you've got holders on most of these. I think if you have a Luxe model, you don't have the lid holders, and it doesn't really matter. And let me just get a spoon, and we will look at what this looks like a little bit. So, and I'll get a handful of regular beans. So you can see they're partially cooked, right? But they're still harder. Now, some of these beans were broken. I got these at Aldi's, so they're not always the most perfect beans. But I'm also going to use these for refried beans, and I don't care. But let's see. Don't do this at home. It's hot. I'm used to grabbing hot things, so I'm going to put that in there. Let's see what the smush factor is. Yeah. You can see that it's not ready, right? So we know that when we cook beans in general in the Instant Pot, beans are the variable. And so whenever it looks like it just splits in half like that, I've told you they're not ready. We don't want these to be ready, but this is just another kind of sign when you're cooking something on your own, if you get a bean out and it does that, to put it back in for a period of time. So, and when I say beans are the variable, what I mean is that some beans are older than other beans, and we have absolutely no way of knowing. So it could be that you go to your local grocery store today and you get pinto beans and they cook up perfectly in X amount of minutes. Then next week you get some pinto beans at the same place and you cook them for X amount of minutes and they're not done. They're kind of just split in half like this. The remedy is super simple. You put the lid back on and you cook it for another 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how undone you feel they are. If I'm cooking beans, and you guys have noticed this in a lot of my recipes, if I'm cooking beans that I want to be creamy anyhow, I'll cook the heck out of them. Because I don't care. I want them to be a little mashed up. I want them to be smooth. For something like red beans that we're not using any oil in, but the beans themselves make it creamy. So if you're looking for those perfect like canned bean texture where they're just kind of real individual, you might have to kind of time it down a little bit and cook a second time. You know, maybe cook a little less time than I asked for in instance, a refried bean recipe. if you're going on that as a guide, right? So cook it a little less, open it, see how it looks, then cook it again some more. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say about beans right now. Last week, the Vegan Slow Cooker Revised Edition came out, and there's lots of bean dishes in this as well. So if you don't have an Instant Pot, there's plenty of recipes you can get in this book and on healthyslowcooking.com. I have most of my Instant Pot recipes that I've blogged up on plant-based-instantpot.com, but there are a few on healthyslowcooking.com as well. Do you guys have some questions about beans, soaking beans, cooking beans, where to source beans, anything? Because here I am. I have all the time in the world for you. But you guys are being so quiet. Did it snow where you guys were? Because I don't know if you can, I don't think you can see very much out the back. It's still not melted. Cheryl's at home for the, second day in a row because she can't get out of the driveway. The roads are clear, but our driveway is a hot mess. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions. If you have some questions later that magically come to you, just go ahead and ask under this video. If you know somebody else who would be interested in learning this, please share the video with them. I'd really appreciate it. I just want to get this information out to as many people as possible to make their cooking lives a little bit easier. And I will see you next week. Okay. And Jackie said I answered her questions, so if anybody else has questions, let me know. I'll see you next week. And if there's something you would really like to see that's kind of short and sweet, can be done within 20-30 minutes, go ahead and leave that down there too. Like I'm planning on making gingerbread syrup next week. Oh, Sherry said she made my white chili with jackfruit. What'd you think? Did it work out for you? We loved it. Oh, you liked it too? Good. And it's just like the fall and winter are just the perfect times to have like a really nice warming bean dinner, especially with the holidays and spending. It's also nice to go on the cheap and get some pinto beans, black beans, generic versions. And it's also a great time to ask for Rancho Gordo beans for a holiday present. They have actually a quarterly bean club. So once every quarter you get I think 4 or 5 beans and some surprises. So if you like heirloom beans, it's not cheap. So heirloom beans are usually like $5 or $6 a pound. So they are significantly more. Except for Mayakoba beans, which I have found at the regular grocery store. So keep an eye out for those. And I have a recipe for refried Mayakoba beans on plant-based-instantpot.com. Okay, see you next week. Have a great one and tell me what you want to see.